To those who have turned their faces away, to those who are faithless and wretched in their jealousies, to those who have denied us, to those who have denied me, I wreak ill vengeance. I wrench your souls and break your bones. I will cast hunger through your accursed existence. Down the beyond you will not forget. I grant you the small gift from love turned aside and make you like me. Break you in my image as you have broken me. I shall cast fear from myself into you and all your kind. I am Lindigur. I am the hunger. I am the flare. And from this moment, you shall be too.
What you just heard, mortals, were the wails of a dying god. One so full of anger over his betrayal, he cursed those whom he had enslaved. Today, we will be diving into one of my most beloved and the most tragic of topics I could think of outside of biotransference itself, the Flayed Ones. But what is a Flayed One? What makes a Necron decide that it would like a new cloak made out of you? Well, these ghastly creatures were driven to madness by the vengeful curse you just heard, and its influence runs so deep that no Necron, not even Canoptics, are safe. So sit tight, flesh bags, and prepare yourself for a tale of horror, hunger, and the eternal torment of the Necron who fell to the Flayer virus. But before we begin, a quick shout out to my patrons. If you want your name featured here, feel free to drop as little as $1 a month on my Patreon, and you'll get early access to these videos, behind the scene content, and more. Now, let's get into the meat of today's topic. Before we talk about their origins, why don't we discuss what exactly are Flayed Ones? Flayed Ones are Necrons who have succumbed to the Flayer virus, a curse afflicted upon the Necron by the only Satan known to have been completely annihilated, Lindigur, the Flayer. Most of Lindigur's history has been scrubbed, and what is left is just about his demise and the affliction he left us with. The virus Lindigur blessed us with drives its victims insane, filling them with the insatiable hunger for flesh, blood, and to flay all those who live, draping themselves in the skin and body parts of their victims, the gore acting as macabre trophies. Two other Necrons, Flayed Ones, are abominations, outcasts from normal society. They are feared, loathed, and exiled, for the Flayer virus is suspected to be highly contagious. Any Necrons who shows signs of infection is either destroyed on the spot or banished to find their way to the Flayer dimension, a red pocket universe where these wretched beings gather. But it's not the only place. Most hide within the deepest shadows of the tombs they called home. Others migrate to the Flayer dimension, or they end up in the Bone Kingdom of Drazak. Now, I don't want you to mistake their madness for stupidity. Flayed Ones are cunning hunters, capable of stalking their prey for days, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. They're drawn to battlefields by the scent of blood and carnage, tearing open reality with their claws to emerge from their dimension and feast. Some, like Imhotep the Stormlord, have capitalized on this, and have actually weaponized the Flayed Ones, using them as shock troops. But we'll get into that in due time. Another thing of note, if you listen closely, faint clickings can be heard emanating from these ghouls as if communicating. Yes, folks, Flayed Ones are not just mindless, hungry beasts of burden. A Flayed One, much like a destroyer, retains parts of their previous personality and memories, or develops a whole new one depending on their role in their previous life. And as if that wasn't already interesting enough, rather than speaking like you and I, friends, they speak with an advanced form of binary that takes the form of clicks and chitters. Though most have yet to understand its meaning outside of those who have already been infected. It is also very important to note that the Flayer virus doesn't just affect Necrons, it can affect Canoptics as well, turning them into grotesque, flesh-hungry machines. I have even heard of a recorded case of your Mechanicus Tech Priest becoming infected after experimenting with our living metal. Those poor fools. I had heard they begun mutilating themselves, tearing each other's skin away and worshipping Lindigur, proving that his curse truly knows no bounds. I do think, however, I have droned on long enough about what a Flayed One is. How about we move this show along and get onto their origins? Lindigur the Flayer. Poor, foolish Lindigur. During the closing days of the war in heaven, the Necrons led by the Silent King turned against their Catan overlords. While most Catan were shattered into shards, Lindigur was utterly obliterated. His wails echoed through the heads of the Necron, its final moments not in soulful reflection, but rather its last seconds were spent cursing its betrayers, unleashing the Flayer virus upon the Necron. Supposedly, the Maynarch dynasty, known for being conditioned by the Silent King to be the most malicious and savage of Necron as they underwent biotransference, was responsible for the Flayer's destruction, and they were the first to suffer its curse. Because of this, many of the other dynasties pleaded with Zarek to destroy them, so that their infection couldn't spread to others, all the while they were hunting down the last of the old ones. Zarek ignored their request and responded that he still had use for them in the future. After the star in the system of the Maynarch dynasty called home went supernova, the dynasty awoke, and most immediately turned into Flayed Ones. And from there, with the dynasties working together, the plague spread from one to another. It became so rampant that an entire dimension was cordoned off to contain them, and an ancient tomb world in the most northern corner of the galaxy, the Bone Kingdom of Drazak, was given to the ghoulish creatures. And about that, I had mentioned it in a previous section, so let's give you all a brief overview about this Bone Kingdom. Many like to deny its existence, that it was made up to explain where the Flayed Ones go, but I can assure you that it is very real, and it is a nightmarish realm covered in meat and bone and ruled by Valgul, the Fallen. If Valgul actually exists, he is an interesting character. Some say that an overlord, Holtix, adopted the name after his whole dynasty succumbed to the Flayer's curse. Others think him a myth, and that the Flayed Ones rule over themselves like a pack of wild mutts. The kingdom is a twisted reflection of Necron society, where the hunt for flesh is the only law. When Drazak faces a food shortage of sorts, Valgul will announce to his subjects a time of bounty, sending his Flayed Ones out into the galaxy to gather fresh meat. These times of bounties see the Flayed Ones all over random battlefields where torment flows as steadily as water. During this time, some nobles will reach out to Valgul and request that he and his Flayed Ones come through and clean up what is left of their conquests. And as quickly as they come, they leave, making their way back to their dominion of decay. So if I haven't already made things obvious, I care deeply for Flayed Ones, keeping a few as pets when they're around. However, while I do enjoy the distraction at times, you must understand that these monstrous Necron have an important role on the battlefield. As mentioned before, Flayed Ones make excellent shock troops, and lords have exploited them for terror tactics. The Flayed Ones use their personal dimension to stalk the battlefields looking for their next victim and meal. Emotek, the Stormlord, has put to use a grand strategy that I personally enjoy. Using swarms of micro-scarabs, the Stormlord has weaponized the Flayed Ones into being summoned to wherever he may be at a moment's notice.
It's time to go to heaven, my child.
Stop it, what are you doing?
Stop it, don't
Stop it,
fight.
cut it out,
Don't
help.
stop.
These micro-scarabs make micro-incisions on and inside the poor soul-facing Emotek, the amount of carnage attracting the gaze of the Flayers and forcing them to drop out of their portals for a snack. Sadly, they are still Flayed Ones. They have no regard for strategy or tactics, appearing only to satisfy their hunger. Most of the time, when they appear, it's uninvited, but a lord isn't one to pass on the opportunity to take advantage that the Flayed Ones bring. And then, when the fighting is over, most commanders will order their destruction, forcing the ghouls to flee. However, some always escape back to their dimension or the Bone Kingdom, waiting for the next opportunity to feed. Now, mortal, I want to try something new, and please give me some feedback if you all would like to see something like this in future topics. So, we went over their lore. How about we talk about their use in the game of Warhammer 40,000? Flayed Ones, during the game's 10th edition, cost a whopping 60 points for a unit, and 120 for units higher than 5 to a maximum of 10. They have move 5 inches, are toughness 4 with a 4+ save, a single wound, leadership 7, and only 1 OC. Flayed Ones are equipped with claws that gives them 4 attacks each, are weapon skill 3+, strength 4, AP 1, and only 1 damage, with their bonuses being that they have sustained hits 1, letting them add more attacks on critical hits, and twin linked, letting them reroll failed wound rolls. Now the rules include infiltrators and stealth, meaning that during the deployment step they can be placed anywhere on the battlefield up to 9 inches away horizontally from any of your opponent's models and deployment zone. And stealth makes it so that your opponent has a harder time shooting them with a -1 to hit. On the topic of this, their special ability, Flesh Hunger, allows them to score critical hits on any successful hit roll if the unit they're attacking is below half strength. Realistically, I wouldn't field them on the table unless I was bringing minimum 20 Flayed Ones, 2 squads of 10. Why? They're very fragile with that 4-up save and a single wound. Now, most Necron units are squishy, seeing as how all Necrons have access to reanimation protocols, but their use comes in as shock troops. Hey, kinda like the lore, right? With Infiltrate and Stealth, Flayed Ones will have a decently easy time getting into the face of your opponent, overwhelming them with a good chunk of AP -1 damage. The best thing you can do is hide them in cover, giving them a -1 to hit and the ability to subtract a single point of AP from larger weapons that would nullify their save entirely. If you have first turn, do not move your Flayed Ones out of cover unless you can guarantee a turn 1 charge. The idea I use for Flayed Ones is to lock my opponent in combat rather than trying to kill them outright with Flayed Ones. So if you cannot confirm a charge, do not move them. Now for my experience, small arms fire, or in this case small claw attacks, like that, where there are a lot of hits versus fewer higher damage attacks, has proven more useful. It may not be the world-ending Doomsday Arc's Doomsday Cannon, nor the theatrical auto wound of a Gauss Cannon, but it's a cheap way of getting bodies with decent attacks on the table. Would I recommend them in casual play? My preferred way of play? Sure, go for it. But if you're some kind of sweatlord competitive player who's in it to win it, I recommend that you spend your 120 points somewhere else. And there you have it, flesh bags, the history and tactical use of Flayed Ones. Whether you pity them like I or fear them, one thing is certain. I just think they're neat. As always, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to support the channel, check out my Patreon for exclusive perks. Until next time, I bid you farewell.